Now, the Home Secretary has announced major plans, reforms and an extra £500 million to help restore public's faith and trust in the police. Yvette Cooper has shared plans for a new police performance unit, giving her more control over police standards. This will include priority areas like knife crime and violence against women and girls, which Labour has promised to halve in a decade. Let's speak with Hamish Brown, former Scotland Yard Detective Inspector. Hamish, good afternoon to you.
And hello to you, Ian.
I lose a little bit of something whenever I hear politicians talk about targets and league tables. I always think, here we go again, because I sense we've been in this territory before. Look, any initiative, Hamish, that's going to reduce something has to be good, but I always sense it comes with another side to the argument.
Yes, league tables certainly can be very divisive. But my view is, if you have a specific problem like stealing from cars or burglaries or whatever it is, there has to be a dedicated unit, not just giving it to police officers going out with all the multitude of things they have to deal with. They have to be dedicated to that type of crime. Yeah. And with that, we'll see that type of crime dealt with very well. I'm quite sure about that. The difficulty is, once you take officers away from general policing, answering calls and all the other things they deal with, that standard can go down. And in fact, we have seen this, not so much with league tables, but for public order, Notting Hill, Carnival, football matches, goodness knows how many demonstrations, and it leaves the police threadbare sometimes. But maybe league tables in some ways are a good idea, a concentrated effort, a determined effort, but it must have the proper leadership and management. It's absolutely essential.
And I guess one of the problems for this would be, are police forces going to be doing the work of the Police and Crime Commissioner or in cahoots with, or are they working directly for the Home Secretary? Because I can see some forces going, well, look, we've got to hit targets here. We've got to, you know, of course we want to reduce knife crime. Of course we want to reduce violence against women and girls. Who, you know, nobody would argue with any of that, notionally speaking. But putting it into action could see unforeseen problems here. We could find ourselves with entire police forces dedicating all of their time to some of these initiatives, which means other areas might fall by the wayside. So the Home Secretary goes, well, bravo, Cleveland, bravo, Kent, Essex, etc. You've done really well. Manchester, not so good. You know, West Midlands, a little bit iffy. It could create a problem that perhaps the Home Secretary hasn't considered.
Well, of course, each crime commissioner is just that. They're the commissioner for their London. It's interesting you didn't mention the Mayor of London when you went to the list of dignitaries. And that he particularly leans very heavily on the Metropolitan Police. So the Met are also answerable to him as well as the Home Secretary. And indeed, the Commissioner be keen to keep his job at the moment. So he's got to come up with the answers. The difficulty is it mustn't be persuaded by individual whims because of her party. Perhaps they belong to a union, I don't know. It's got to be an independent decision. Look at the problems you've got, look at what resources you've got, and how can they be best used in a proportionate way. And I think this is a very convenient time to break away a little bit and talk about this sort of thought police, where the police have come into some criticism, quite frankly, in quite a few quarters. Yep. And some very unhappy headlines. But I agree with Keir Starmer when he says, well, let's have the police dealing with proper crime. Yes, it's absolutely essential that people should be protected for insensitive comments. And in fact, it was only yesterday or day before, there was a Tottenham Hotspur footballer, albeit dealt by the Football Association, but £100,000 fine, which probably might not be a huge amount to him. It would be for me, certainly, but probably not a Premiership footballer. But where it's going to hit him is a 7-match suspension. So, yes, the offended player, Mr. Son, he's entitled to be protected for that, and the right message must go out for those in authority. but at the same time there is day-to-day policing, violence against women and children. You know, I've done a lot on that with the stalking, on the rapes and murders I've dealt with as well. So it's competing demands, and the head of each police force has got to do their best, and they must have the cooperation of the various crime commissioners and indeed the Mayor of London in respect to the Metropolitan Police.
I mean, you touched on that, Hamish. It's worth a little look into that, the non-crime hate incident thing. It turns out that Alison Pearson, the Telegraph journalist, this wasn't a non-crime hate crime incident. This was, they were following up on a report of inciting racial hatred. So it's slightly different perhaps from when we first saw this story, but it doesn't change the fact that it was something she wrote on Twitter. That seems to be the sort of area of concern. What are we allowed to write? What are we not allowed to write? Regardless of her, the wider issue, non-crime hate crimes, as I understand it, the Conservatives introduced this because they thought, rather than a kind of nuts and sledgehammers of always arresting people, we can record an incident as a kind of a warning in a way, rather than, you know, pursuing a big sort of legal case that would probably fail anyway. So we record it as an incident because someone might have been a bit borderline. But it's not turned out like that, because it seems it's been used to really nab people, turn up, sometimes many officers, which is one of the more confusing things about it perhaps, turning up because somebody wrote some hurty words on Facebook. Now nobody wants to see that, do they? But we do know that Essex, which is the area that the Telegraph journalist was from, have recorded 1,500 non-crime hate crimes in the last 24 months. That's quite a lot.
Yeah, I believe I stand to be corrected, but I believe they're actually top of the polls in respect to that.
Yeah.
But it's not only a warning, but it's also gathering intelligence. And it might be with that intelligence to work on other things, perhaps nip the problem in the bud. Terribly important. And Alison Pearson is a case on itself, and the Essex Police are investigating a specific allegation of crime. So we will leave that to one side and leave it to the various people to deal with just that. But any incitement to commit, a racial crime is a very important matter.
Yeah,
and if the police can get in and stop it or prevent it happening in the first place, that warning goes out to the public that the police won't wait until it happens. They're going to take action before then. So yes, it is a call by the police, sometimes a difficult call. But
surely it's a non-crime, isn't it? I mean, that's the point. And if we're going to look at somebody's words on Facebook and say, well, OK, they're saying that today, what might they say tomorrow? I mean, that's not the job of the police or the government, is it? That is a problem for free speech.
Well, there's a little balance there, because was it Article 10 of the European Court of Human Rights talks about freedom of expression.
Yeah.
Article 11, incidentally, talks about freedom of movement, freedom of assembly, the proper wordings. But both come with the same caveat that you can't use those if it affects other people's European Court of Human Rights. Degrading treatment, for example, a right to life. So, yes, the European Court of Human Rights or people's rights aren't necessarily that clear-cut, and it's for some authority to deal with it. But I'm perturbed that this isn't getting a good press for the police. I think the wrong messages are going out, and I reiterate, I support the notion, let's deal with proper crime. That's what you're there for. Deal with your burglaries. That's what people write in about when they complain to their MPs. Deal with the street robberies. Violence on women, absolutely. So keep your eye on the ball. Don't lose track of events, and keep going.
Just a final one, Hamish. I saw this headline, become a vigilante to help us catch dangerous drivers. The police tell the public. Cyclists, car passengers and pedestrians are being urged by police to help catch bad drivers by filming dangerous motorists. Now, it's always rather fun to have a look on YouTube and clock some of those extraordinary moments when there's a bit of a bit of a tete-a-tete between somebody on 2 wheels, somebody on 4, etc., and we can laugh about, you know, what ensues. Is this the direction of travel? Just get your fellow citizens to dob you in it?
Well, the term vigilante, that sometimes can come with some warning, some trepidation, actually. But when we think about some terrible cases where people have gone out and shot robbers and what have you, we don't want the public, I'm sure the police don't want the public specifically patrolling the streets. But certainly if there's been a bad car crash, maybe a fatality or very serious injury, the police very often ask, has anyone got any sort of coverage, you know, from your car? And indeed for crime generally, incidentally. Were you driving in that street? Did something come up on your camera? Is there something of some importance? So I think when the facilities are there, by all means use them. But the term vigilante, it can strike up taking the law into your own hands, and the public positively must not do that. There
it is. Listen, Hamish, thank you for your time as ever. Hamish Brown MBE, former Scotland Yard Detective Inspector. I think the stuff with filming other drivers. Now, if you've got a dash cam and you know, you drive past a terrible incident, someone's getting murdered on the pavement, then of course you're going to hand that to the police and go, I think this might be useful to you. The people the cyclists that go around with the camera on the helmet. Now, by the way, I haven't got anything wrong with somebody. Cyclists are quite vulnerable in lots of situations, so having a camera there is arguably helpful. It's the 21st century. These things exist. Why would you not want to do it to protect yourself? But there's a couple of those YouTube guys that go around essentially mostly slow-moving traffic and, you know, clocking people who are checking their phone. Now, I don't have my phone in my... I put my phone in the glove box or in the little box next to the... where you sit, yeah? So it can't distract me in that way. I'm not some purist, I just find it the easiest thing to do. But just a word of caution here. When I see Cycling Mikey, or whatever his name is, the fella that seems to go out there and take great, you know, are you using your phone? It's like, I'm in stationary traffic, mate. Can you not talk to me like I'm a serial killer, okay? I've looked at a phone screen while I'm in stationary traffic. If I'm driving along the road with my knees at the steering wheel to turn corners while checking my Instagram account on my phone, I get that. That's a kind of vaguely sort of interesting moment to witness and to watch, and clearly an idiot on the road. But most of the time, what I see are people just stuck in traffic, at a traffic light, pick up the phone, look at it. I know it's not desirable. It's also illegal. You're not meant to do it. But let's give it the right proportionality when we analyse it, OK? Somebody looked at their phone screen. Some people turn their radio station over to talk, also using their hand. Some people light a cigarette. All sorts of things. Put the fan heater on, etc. Check out the aircon. And again, I'm not defending using the phone. I'm just saying, you know, I hear these people talking about it as if they've just caught, you know, some kind of narcotics dealer because they happen to glance at a message while sitting in a long line of non-moving traffic. Proportionality, kids. It's the buzzword here. 0344 499 1000. Back with more from you on Talk, coming next.